Okay, there it is. Hi, Cheyenne. Hi, Susan. Yes, I'm here. I'm just doing a little sharing, if you'll bear with me for a moment. I think I've also got to fix the echo. I've probably got an echo. Also, please help with sharing. That would be very good. Yeah, I tried to find the watch party for the debate, and for some reason, I found myself stymied. Could not find it. So I finally watched it, okay, on MSNBC. After that was done, I watched the Hill coverage, and the Crystal Ball and Saga and Jetty and Friends, and found that kind of interesting. I thought they did a pretty good job. Anyway, okay, please tell me if we have any echoes. I see a few of you are still up. I'm happy to see that. That, okay, is very good. I see I'm okay. If you need my volume turned down or anything like that, please let me know. Oh, Susan said I was able to convince the bartenders at the party to vote for Bernie. Cheyenne says no echo here. Thank you, Cheyenne. Okay, I think that's my signal to go ahead. Uh, and actually, you should feel free to go ahead because I think we're going to exchange impressions, okay, on this one. I entitled this one Debate Number 5. It's about the failure, okay, of MSNBC to do its job. And I think that that was clearly the case. And the reason why it was is there were big issues, okay, of Medicare for all that were raised by Elizabeth Warren's transition plan. And the moderators of the debate made no attempt to bring those major issues to the fore. And the amount of discussion, okay, on Medicare for all was pretty small. as well. So I thought they failed in that particular respect. And as they did in previous debates as well, they came close to ignoring the climate emergency completely. I mean, they discussed 100 issues. Okay. Certainly, there are a lot of those issues that are important to people, but they're important basically to, uh, to one group over here, to a second group over here, to a particular demographic. They don't address us all. The Medicare for All issue does. The Green New Deal issue certainly does. The issue of getting money out of politics certainly does. These are voter suppression are the major issues of the campaign. The major issues of the campaign. Most topics, Susan says, MSNBC is a corporate-owned media. They don't want to promote the Medicare for All bill. Only safe topics like impeachment, or identity politics. Yes, I know that's true, but their job, and we have to remind them of what their job is, not what they think it is, but what it is as a group. Oops, I notice I've had an interruption in my visual, so I will fix that immediately. I have no idea why that happened. Let's hope that it comes on again very shortly. It doesn't seem to be. Forgive me for a moment while I handle this technical issue. Fortunately, the stream is still continuing. I have no idea what has happened to the camera, but I will debug it as best I can. That hasn't been happening lately. I cannot explain why it decided to happen at this point, but I think I'm back. I should be back anyway. There's always a little delay. I notice I'm not quite back on Facebook yet, but I should be in just a moment. My camera tells me it's on. So anyway, their job and their FCC license is to do a competent job of talking about what's important, at least the subject matter. Also, I'm getting terribly, terribly tired of their efforts to manipulate the outcome of the campaign. It is terribly, terribly infuriating. The major media, I don't care if they're corporate owned or not, it's this constant practice of bias in the news. They feel they have the right to manipulate the public and to put their thumbs on the scales of our campaigns. This has to end. We have to end it. I mean, maybe to end it is to remove the licenses. okay, of one or more of these networks. See how they like that. I mean, maybe if we remove the licenses of one, the others will fall into line and take the bias out of what they do. But the bias is so apparent. Their bias against the anti-establishment candidates, even when they're not really anti-establishment. Like, I don't believe that Andrew Yang, okay, is anti-establishment, actually, okay, or very anti-establishment. He seems to me to be a neoliberal person with some different ideas, but that's about it. He's a neoliberal person. He doesn't want to make any major structural changes that I can see. Okay. But even when someone is a faux threat to the establishment, okay, like Andrew Yang, they're still biased against him. They're biased against Tulsi Gabbard, of course. They have a terrible bias against Tulsi Gabbard. And, of course, Bernie Sanders. They do their best to ignore Bernie Sanders. 4 million donations, okay, and all. More than 1 million volunteers. I don't know how many millions of volunteers he has now. But they're ignoring that. And they're boosting somebody. They're boosting somebody who is clearly a person who talks in glittering generalities, who has very little that is specific to say, who is offering people very, very little in terms of anything concrete. And as for Kamala Harris and Cory Booker and Amy Klobuchar, I mean, please, these people have nothing but platitudes to offer. I thought Cory Booker gave a good closing statement, okay, on this one. He summarized the case for why he should be in some of the future debates, but the points he made during the debate with respect to the marijuana point were all just completely out to lunch or just straight platitudinous garbage. I mean, I thought that Tom Steyer was infinitely better than Cory Booker or Amy Klobuchar, okay, or Kamala Harris. I mean, what does Harris ever have to say that is truly meaningful? What she's saying is, if you go for me, I'm going to be the female Obama. You want to see a return to Obama? I'm the female Obama. Look at my skin color. I'm the female Obama. And I got a law degree. I'm the female Obama. Look at me. What else is she telling us? What else is she telling us? Anything else she's telling us, she's lying about. She says, I've always represented the people. I've never represented, she implies, I've never represented the corporates. Oh, yeah? What did you do about not indicting the current Secretary of Treasury, Mr. Mnuchin? What did you do about that? I mean, you let him go even though your staff recommended an indictment and promptly got a $2,800 contribution from the guy while you were running for the Senate. What happened there? Who did you represent then? Who did you represent when you put thousands, thousands of black people into jail in California. Who were you representing then? Were you representing the people? I don't think so. I mean, come on. We've seen too much of this person. She needs to get out of the race. And Amy Klobuchar sounds like she's rechanneling the 1980s for us. I mean, what has she got to offer? Absolutely nothing. Okay, I mean, I can't believe that people are voting for these people at all. I know there are some who are voting for these people. There are people who think that that Mayor Pete did a good job in the debate. He was articulate in the debate. He was fast on his feet. He was good, okay, at meeting attacks. But he didn't say anything substantive. He didn't make the case for himself. What does he offer? Why should we vote for him? What is he going to give us that means anything? And who are the candidates who talked about the climate crisis? All I heard was what Bernie had to say and what Tom Steyer had to say. And the others ignored the main continuing issue of our time, other than perhaps the Medicare for All issue. Of course, the Medicare for All issue is the issue of the moment. Okay. But assuming we settle that by 2021, what is going to be the only important issue of the 2020s? It's going to be the climate emergency. And these people, okay, are not talking about it. A lot of the fault in this is MSNBC's fault. They're not emphasizing it. They're as aware of the science as the rest of us are. Those journalists and commentators have to be aware of this, as aware of the sciences, okay, as the rest of us are. We know what they're doing. They're covering for the corporate class. They're covering for the 1%. That's what they're doing. They're trying to maintain the regime as we go forward with minimal change from the way it is now. Why are they trying to do that? Why are they fiddling while Rome is burning? Why? Do they expect they're going to be protected from climate change? Do they expect their children and grandchildren are not going to be the victims of the climate emergency? Don't they care about their children and grandchildren? What kinds of human beings are these? They're not serving us at all. We need to go and get their licenses. They don't deserve to have licenses. They don't deserve to have platforms. Okay, another rigged debate. Big surprise. Yes, it was rigged. It was rigged. It was rigged by the questions. It was rigged by the agenda that the moderators had. They weren't simply moderators. They were the agenda setters. And the agenda they set was mostly trivial. Mostly trivial. It wasn't about the big issues of our time, or at least it did not prioritize the issues properly. And when it did have a question concerning the issues, when, for example, it asked the question about student debt, then they addressed that question to somebody who certainly wasn't known for dealing with student debt. Now, of course, it got over to Elizabeth Warren, and she had a thing or two to say about it, but they never got to address Bernie Sanders. How could they not give Bernie Sanders a chance to speak about student debt? I know, they're biased. It's another instance of their bias. So what did I expect? Look, I'm not going to give in to them temptation to say, well, it's exactly what we expected. Okay, the debate was rigged. It was what they expected. Cheyenne asks, has YouTube been messing with you? No, not that I can see yet. In other words, I'm just getting started on on YouTube. I mean, I have a lot of videos up there, but I don't have too many people following me yet. So I don't think I'm big enough for them to mess with me. I think that's what's going on there. Okay, but anyway, uh, I'm not ready to give them a pass because we expected it anyway. They did a terrible job. They did a terrible job. And the quality of the debate reflected it. They abused their privilege of holding the debate. That wasn't their right. They didn't have a right to hold a debate. That was a privilege that the system gave to them. They should not have that privilege. They've abused it, plainly abused it, all through this season. And Steve Day says each question should be addressed in the same manner as the closing statements. Of course, they would not have time for this. If they had 10 candidates on the debate stage, how can they all address the question in the same manner as the closing statements? It took them, 10 to 12 minutes to get through the closing statements? 15 minutes? Nancy says, thank you. No passes here, Bernie. Yeah. I think, it was Bernie too. But Bernie did not get enough chance to talk. Now, Bernie has positions on all of the major issues of our time, and most of the minor issues too, and extensive positions. There's no question that they can ask that he doesn't have a position on. But a lot of the others have no positions on major questions. They don't know anything about those issues. And the fact that they conduct the debates in this way hides their ignorance on many of the major issues of our time. Amy Klobuchar is ignorant about climate change and the climate emergencies. Harris is ignorant about that. She doesn't know a damn thing about that. She's not on top of those issues. Joe Biden is not on top of those issues. I don't think Andrew Yang knows very much about those issues. I don't even know whether Cory Booker knows very much about those issues. What they're doing is they're addressing questions to people who, in certain cases, they expect will be able to answer the questions. When they address establishment candidates, they give them questions they think the establishment candidates have thought about and have some answers to. But when they address the non-establishment candidates, they try to catch them with questions that they might not have any answers for. That's what they do, gotcha questions. With Bernie, they have a problem because it doesn't matter what they ask him, he's got an answer for it. And he knows more about it than they do. They have not researched the issues as well as Bernie Sanders or as well as Elizabeth Warren in most cases. But of course, when it came to health care, until recently, Elizabeth Warren did not have her own independent positions on. All she had was, I'm with Bernie. Then she began to develop her positions about how she would pay for it and how she would handle the transition. And on both of those issues, she stepped into deep doo-doo. Immediately. She hadn't really thought them through. She was a latecomer to that issue. She should simply have stuck with Bernie. But she wasn't ready to tough it out. She noticed that in the polls, there was still a lot of sentiment for the Affordable Care Act and for a moderate, quote-unquote, stance when it came to health care reform. And so she decided to move over to a more moderate stance. And as the Hill people suggested this evening, what she seems to have settled on is, well, first she'll pass the Mayor Pete's alternative. And then 3 years later, if she still has any power left, she'll pass Bernie's Medicare for All bill. Isn't that great? She can have the best of both worlds. She can have her cake and eat it too. And on issue after issue after issue, Warren is trying to have her cake and eat it too. Maybe I should have entitled this particular video, it's about having your cake and eating it too. But I thought it's about the failure of MSNBC doing its job was a better title. Because that was certainly the outstanding characteristic of the debate. Okay, does anybody else have anything you would like to add? I've left out a lot of details, I know. I don't think there's any reason to go into the details because not much of substance was said that we have not heard before. One thing that came out, though, actually more clearly is that Bernie Sanders is opposed to these regime change wars. Very, very definitely. And Bernie Sanders is very much for constraining Israel and defending the rights of the Palestinians at last. And Bernie Sanders is very much for the immigrants. Very much for them. And Bernie Sanders is still for a new America, and he will fight every step of the way. He will fight every step of the way. There was one thing, though, I didn't like in his answers, and that is somebody gave him the Obama criticism. In other words, the Obama notion that we shouldn't be about tearing down the system. And instead of Bernie saying, I'm for a great deal of structural change in our system because it hasn't been working for people, he said, well, I agree with President Obama. But what I want to do is make our present system work well for all Americans, or words to that effect. That's not a precise quote, but that was the kind of answer, okay, he gave, which really kind of slipped the issue, because Bernie is for big structural change. And the kind of structural change that he is for and that he is talking about is what Obama means by tearing down the system. That's what we have to understand. When Obama says tearing down the system, he's not saying that what Bernie wants to do is to end our democracy. What he's saying is that Bernie finally wants to make our democracy real democracy. And to Obama, that's tearing down the system. Because he wants to live in the neoliberal utopia comprised of an oligarchy of talent, quote unquote, that he is a part of. So that, I think, is the issue there. But for me, that was what the whole debate was about. Now, there was some strategic issues and some tactical issues. Okay. Again, it was not Bernie's strategy to become critical, okay, of the Buttigieg campaign, okay, or Warren, to draw major distinctions between himself, okay, and Warren. Again, they did not fight. So Bernie still doesn't want to fight. His debate was a very good debate in making clear what he stood for, in being relentlessly positive. But somebody has to take on Buttigieg, on his record. On his record in South Bend. He has an awful record in South Bend. There are also a number of other things which are surfacing. He talks to the Tea Party, certain other things that he's been involved in. The Douglas Plan fiasco in South Carolina, claiming support from large numbers, okay, of black people, where he did not have any such support. His lying about the composition of his support, that did not even come up in this debate. Nobody called him on it. And nobody called Warren on her transition plan or her tax plan. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So why didn't Bernie call her on those things? It's his favorite issue. He knows every criticism of what she put out by now. He was in perfect shape to talk about it. He's probably in perfect shape to question what Buttigieg is doing, but he did not take the opportunity to do that. He's still focused on presenting a positive picture of what he is offering, but Steve says Nina Turner raked him over his quote, "I'm not asking for your vote" comment. Who's the him in this instance? Did Bernie make such a comment? Steve Day says Peter did a gentrification move in South Bend. Yes, I know he did. And not only that, he's done nothing for the homeless on the streets. He's got a very small city there and an abnormally large number of homeless people on the streets that he's done nothing for. After making certain promises, he does nothing for them at all. There was an interview last week that Jordan Charton had with Arakel Bloss. Arakel lives in South Bend, and she's intimately familiar with how Pete has treated the homeless in his small city. She made it abundantly clear that Pete could not even manage his small city, but he proposes to manage the federal government. I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't even think that Pete is much of a leader. I mean, he has the charisma of a wet sponge. I don't know. I didn't hear Bernie throw a quick gentrification comment. He may have done so, but if so, I missed that. I missed that. Well, there'll be further discussions of the debates tomorrow, of the debate, singularly, tomorrow. But unless you have some more comments or questions or observations from the debate, I think that I'm going to call it a night because it's real late. And I only went on for a quick one this time because I couldn't stop myself. I had to at least say a few things about it. I mean, the whole thing was so ridiculous to me. I don't understand why so many people are still in it. I don't know why Harris is still in it. I mean, she has the chance of a flea right now. And yet she, is still in it. I think that Tulsi seems to have only a very small chance, at this time. Only thing different, that I would say about Tulsi is that people still hardly know anything about her and her message. Maybe she needs some more time, to get that out. Compared to other candidates, she has only a small amount, okay, of money. She's not able to throw in, okay, $1 million, okay, in TV ads, okay, in Iowa to get her message out to people. She has to do a lot, okay, of retail campaigning for that. Okay, it's hard for her. But at least she has substantive things to say. All the way along, she has substantive things to say. And she has a very good record in Congress, okay, as well. So she is worth continuing to hear from. And by the way, Tom Steyer may be a billionaire, and he may have bought his way onto the debate stage with his dollars. But at the same time, he gave a good account of himself, okay, in this particular debate. He said the right things on the issues. He did. And he favors wealth taxes. He may be a billionaire, but he doesn't line up with the other billionaires. On the issues, he lines up with us. And he lines up with us on the climate issues, too. He still has a reason to be there. But Cory Booker and Amy Klobuchar and Harris, they just don't have any reason to be there anymore. I mean, what are they offering? And Pete, what does Pete offer that any of us need? What does he offer that any of us need? Is he really going to be able to put the nation together spiritually, all as one big happy family, when he can't solve the economic, or won't solve, doesn't intend to solve the economic problems of people, or the healthcare problems of people, or the getting money out of politics problems of people, or the climate emergency policies of people, or the free college policies? No, he's not offering any of that. So what does he have for us? It isn't even pie in the sky. It's just a bunch of abstractions with statements of faux religious faith. Why do I say faux? I can't see into his heart, so why do I say faux? I say faux because, frankly, expressions of religious faith are the last refuge of scoundrels, along with nationalism. Of course, that's not quite the saying. The saying is that patriotism is the last refuge, okay, of scoundrels. I'm not sure I believe that when it comes to patriotism, but when it comes to nationalism, I certainly do. And when it comes to religion, I certainly do as well. I don't mind when people have faith. Okay, if they have it, then good for them. God bless them for having it, okay, and being able to retain it. But frankly, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear about it. That's a personal matter of theirs. For me, it's not a political issue. It shouldn't be a political issue. Anyway, I didn't care for the debate. I didn't care for the performance, okay, of the moderators. I think MSNBC is one big fail. And on that note, okay, I'm going to say good night. Thank you for coming. I didn't expect there'd be too many of you here. I came on simply because I thought I needed to come on quickly and talk this over and put it away and go back to some, okay, of the other issues. So I'll see you tomorrow night. It's Thursday night. I'll be around at roughly 9 o'clock, okay, or a little later, as is my habit. And please don't forget, please share, like, and subscribe the YouTube video, and like this one. And in addition, please occasionally visit my Patreon page at www.patreon.com. What the hell is that again? /Joe_Firestone. I've said it so many times by now, I should know it. What can I say? I really need your Patreon support if you can spare it. Anyway, thank you for coming once again. Have a very good night. And as I said, I'll see you tomorrow night, okay, at 9.